Hi, folks. Excited for another week of college hockey here on This Week in Hockey East. Thanks so much for joining us. Along with Bridgette Prue, I'm Eric Galanti. We're going to start with maybe the series of the year. Is that crazy to say? But it feels like it could possibly be a huge series on the women's side coming up this weekend. A Saturday-Sunday series that we really want to dive into. It's number 5 UConn and number 8 Northeastern. The Huskies enter the weekend, the Northeastern Huskies, I should say, enter the weekend with a 6-point lead over UConn for first place in Hockey East. They have a chance to really solidify that top spot. They're 13 points clear of third right now, so it's really a 2-team race for the 1 seed.
Yeah, and it's funny because it is the kind of series where you have to go, I meant the Northeastern Huskies, not the you have to use the school names because we got a Huskies versus Huskies matchup. But yeah, these two are the best teams right now in Hockey East, and they were predicted to be that. There were also top 10 in the in the NPI, I should say, as well. So not only is it in the Hockey East standings, but this has some postseason implications for sure, as both of those teams would like to stay in that at-large area to try to get into the tournament. I want to start with Northeastern because they're coming off a win in the third place game of the Beanpot, 3-2 win over Boston College. They really dominated most of that game. Shots were 57-29 for Northeastern. They forced Grace Campbell to make a career high number of saves, and she played great, even though it was in the loss. Sammy Tabor for them scored both of their goals. But looking at what Northeastern was able to do, they were down 1-0. Then Eloise Caron gets a goal, Striker Zablocki, Lily Shannon. They all scored in that game to take third place in the Beanpot. And Caron, she's just been pretty hot in this second half, and she's always been a skilled player. She also scored in the UNH game that they won 2-1 in between the first and second round of the Beanpot. She's our Jersey Mike's a sub above player of the week. Now 11 goals on the year with 4 in her last 4 games, and stick taps for the goalie as well. Lisa Janssen, solid again in net for the Beanpot. Both rounds I thought she looked good. But now for Northeastern, this month's going to be a little bit different with the Olympics on the horizon. They are going to lose one of their top pair defensemen, Alessia Beckler, the freshman. She's going to go out and play for Switzerland in the Olympics, so they'll be without her. They'll be a little bit thinner on defense for about a month.
Yeah, that's certainly an interesting point here. They're going to get a UConn team that certainly was, and you could still almost say is absolutely rolling before they finally had a hiccup on Friday when they lost in overtime against Merrimack. That was their first loss since November 8th. But it did follow an 8-1 win in game 1 of this series. Tia Chan didn't play in the game on Friday, so that certainly stands out. But everything starts with her, right? Her .952 save percentage leads the nation among goalies who have, had at least 10 starts. She's closing in on matching her career high in games played, but, she's really been the full-time goalie this year. That was one of the questions that we had this year, but she's been awesome. They've really created a lot of offense, this UConn team, 37 shots a game over their last 13 games. A ton of different people have scored. They're super balanced, right? You just look at the 9 goals they scored last weekend against Merrimack. 8 of them were by 8 different scorers. So that part really stands out. These two also are going to play again in late February, so 3 times over the next month. There's one statistical difference, basically. It's UConn gives up more shots than Northeastern does. Otherwise, the stats seem pretty even. The teams seem pretty even. Again, Northeastern has a lead right now in the Hockey East standings. UConn has a little bit of a cushion in the NPI. So this is just a really crucial series, and it starts a crucial couple of weeks for Northeastern because they get UConn here, and then they get Holy Cross, who Bridgette is third place in the league and is just, continues to be one of the best stories in Hockey East this year.
Yeah, they just recently had a win over BU last weekend, 4-2 at BU, and they looked really good. Their special teams have been amazing. They've had 2 good goaltenders running throughout the season, and they are now ranked 14th in the USCHO.com poll, the first time in program history that they've ever been ranked. So that should tell you something about the kind of respect that they've gained over the course of the season, starting out nowhere near that and week by week making their way up into that ranking. Goaltending continues to be good. Like I said, Brooke Laranger won each of the last 2 games. Abby Hornung was great all year. She's dealing with a little bit of an injury, so we'll see what happens in net for them this week.
Yeah, should be fun, though. Congratulations, and great to see them as high up as they are. They have a home-and-home with Providence this weekend. Speaking of Providence, what a huge week it was for the Providence men last week. We're going to talk with Nate Leaman on the other side of this break to talk about the Friars. They are rolling right now up to 12th in the NPI. That is coming up next here on This Week in Hockey East.
Today we get a chance to talk to Providence head coach Nate Leaman as number 11 PC gets set to play a weekend series with number 18 Boston University. Our interview presented by Boston Harbor Hotel. Plan your getaway today at bostonharborhotel.com and experience Boston's best waterfront views. We welcome you in, Nate Leaman. Thank you for being with us. I want to just first ask, how are you doing today?
Doing okay. Cold here in Rhode Island today, but just rolling along second half of the season and staying in the grind.
Yeah, cold in Boston too, so not gonna get any help there. But I wanted to ask you first about your sweep last weekend against Boston College. What were you most proud of about your team last weekend?
Um, I mean, like BC's a good team. They're a very good team, and they have the roster now. So unfortunately for the national tournament and the league and things like that, they played some games without, a good number of guys without their roster. But they had their full roster and basically five players that weren't playing. So, I'm proud to. They're a very good team. A very good offensive team. I thought they carried the play on Friday, and we found a way to win that game. And then we came back Saturday with a really good game at home, and played a little bit more to our identity. Um, really 5-on-5, I was really happy with our play in that game.
Nate, coming off that game against Alaska, obviously Philip goes down. You guys lose that game. It feels like there's moments sometimes over the course of a long season where things can kind of go one of two different ways. And it felt like that
Mhm.
was a moment it could have gone the other way. And to your team's credit, you've responded from it and played maybe, some of your four best games of the season. What's the thing that most impressed you about the group's resiliency coming out of that game and what you've been able to do the last couple of weekends?
Yeah, I mean that was a tough week for us after that loss. I mean, obviously losing Philip, who up to that point I would say was our MVP of our team, um, and coming off a bad loss, kind of no two ways about it. Even though I thought, their pucks kind of went in and ours didn't, but like it just wasn't good enough, and I give it was a lot of adversity, but the guys, I think it was a good moment for our team to kind of commit to playing the way and the style that we want to, that can make this group successful. And we kind of walked through it, and the guys have responded. They put a good weekend together against a very good Maine team who come off sweep in Denver. And then obviously a second good weekend against Boston College. So now it doesn't get any easier for us. Now we have the preseason number one in BU.
Yeah, Jack Parsons comes in net for you, replacing Svedback after the injury, rips off 4 straight wins. What have you liked that you've seen from his game since he took over the net the last few weeks?
I really like his poise. That's what I like, is his poise and his confidence. And it's just, I give Coach Palmer a lot of credit for, getting Jack ready for the moment. Jack's worked hard all season, but he's come in and the moment hasn't been too big for him. And that's what I've liked the most, is that he's come in and he's just kind of, I got this. He's been poised, he's made big saves. And nothing is kind of gotten to him at all, and nothing's really rattled him at all. And he's, so I think it's just poison his confidence that I'm, most pleased with.
And I wanted to ask you too about the scoring support that he's gotten since he's come in. You guys have 17 goals in your last 4 games. That's averaging over 4 goals per game in that stretch. Has the scoring support kind of helped him a little bit, and what has it meant for your team?
Well, yeah, it's helped him. It's helped. It would help any goalie to get 4 goals a game, basically. But I mean, there's two things. I mean, like Philip was our only senior, so this is the youngest group I've ever had. We knew it was going to be a year that we were going to grow a lot. So I think part of our scoring is that we're more poised on our scoring opportunities right now, and we're feeling better about them. It wasn't that we weren't getting them early in the year. I mean, I think we lost 3 or 4 games where we had over 45 shots. So we're getting the opportunities all year long. It's just I think with the growth of our team, there's just been we're able to slow those situations down in our head a little bit more, and be a little bit more poised and confident in them. So I think that's part of it, and I think the other part of it is what I touched on earlier. Is just committing more to our style of play, and when we commit to that style of play, we have the puck a lot more, and I think that's kind of helped.
Nate, speaking of some of those guys that you need to take that jump when you don't have a lot of seniors, it feels like Logan Sawyer has certainly done that really all year, but especially in this recent stretch, 2-goal weekend, 4 goals in his last 5 games. What's the jump you've seen from him from year 1 to now here in year 2?
Just your normal jump between a freshman and a sophomore. I mean, it's a big ask to come in and have a freshman play the situations that him and John Mustard and Will Alger did last year. And we have a lot of freshmen doing it this year with like Foshane and Roger, and and it's a big ask. But you usually see that big jump between their freshman and sophomore year. And I was looking at it, with some other players across the country and across our league, and I think they're right on pace. But I think a lot of what Logan has been able to do is just more development. He's just developing as a player and maturing as a player and getting better. So he's got the puck more. He sees the ice better. He's more confident to make his plays. So he's coming along. But really, the thing with our team is it was Logan last weekend. It's been Roger before. It's like we don't particularly know who's going to come up with the 2 goals or what line's going to score for us. Friday night it was Kiviola's line had all 3 goals. So that's kind of the beauty of our forwards up front, is that we have a lot of depth, and as a coach, you don't really know which guy is going to go out or what line's going to go out and get it done. And because of that, I think you see our numbers, like a lot of guys have like really even numbers across the board, where you see one team might have like one guy real high or something. That's not us. Like I don't know what line's going to go out and score 3 goals on a night, but I know one of them will.
All right. Well, thank you, Coach, for giving us some insight on your team this weekend. Good luck against Boston University, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
When we come back, we'll look around the men's side of Hockey East coming up on This Week in Hockey East.
We welcome you back into This Week in Hockey East. Time to take a look at some games on the men's side. And coming up on our Friday night Hockey East showcase, it's Maine going to UMass Lowell. This Lowell team, Bridgette, has started to find a little bit more consistency, and they come off an overtime win against BU on Friday.
Yeah, I was at that game. Just kind of a crazy game. Starts out, they're down 2-0, and then next thing you know, they're playing that Lowell bend but don't break kind of hockey. They're facing a bunch of shots in the first period, outshot 17-5, and then they're able to bounce back from that. They're pretty resilient in that they can get down in games, and then you see them not really let it bother them too much. So they're down 2-0, and then they start out shooting BC 16-7 from partway through the second period into the third. They end up taking that win in overtime, and they won against BU in overtime. They won against UConn last week at the XL Center, so at UConn, upset Minnesota State and California. So they've put together a few impressive wins over the last few weeks of the season, but for them it's still about, can we get a weekend sweep? They haven't been able to do that for quite a while. Back in October against Mercyhurst is the only time this season that they've been able to get 2 wins in one weekend, so that's still out there for them to do. And we look at what they did in overtime. Nate Miskey got the overtime game winner. Then Saturday, though, they went back home. They've struggled a little bit on home ice. They end up losing 3-0 to BU there. So the Riverhawks still looking to put together 2 wins in a row.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, right? You mentioned it. It's getting some of these home games. That's the next step for them, right? They've been okay. They've won 7 games away from Tsongas Center this year, but they're just 2-6 at home, including dropping 4 straight with just a total of 2 goals in those last 4 home games. So I mean, even if they can take care of some of these, even just a little bit, they might be able to make a bit of a run here in the second half, because 4 games in a row and 7 of their last 11 games in the regular season will be at home. So they'll get 2 with Maine this weekend. Maine, again, we've said this all year. Which Maine team do we see this weekend? They were off last weekend after they got swept by Providence, which we just talked about. They were outscored 9-1. But of course, that followed maybe their best weekend of the season when they went out to Denver. They scored 8 times, and they got a win and a tie. So in a year where Ben Barr and company just continue to try to find that consistency, which Maine team do we see? Obviously, they're trying to figure out where they are in goal right now. Mattis Russo, I thought, did a decent job Saturday against Providence, game 2 of that series. Do they go back to him? Do they try to figure it out with Alvin Boya, who's kind of been a little bit up and down? So it'll be interesting to see where they go as they try to figure things out this weekend.
Yeah, and their offense was a little bit quiet in that Providence series as well. Justin Poirier, somebody who seems to find the back of the net every weekend, wasn't quite as noticeable in that. So they're going to have to start generating a little bit more this weekend. Just 20 shots in the Saturday game against PC. Those two were 2 of Maine's lowest expected goals total this season, according to CHN. So this isn't the first time the Riverhawks and the Black Bears have met this season, though. They played a one-off game back in December up in Portland. It was a 5-4 overtime win for Maine. And Lowell is generally a pretty solid penalty kill team this year, but that was a game that Maine went 3 for 6 on the power play. So special teams, something to look at this weekend.
Another huge series coming up. We just talked about it with Nate Leaman. The Providence Friars, who are now clear top team in Hockey East in the NPI. They have a home-and-home with Boston University after sweeping Boston College for the first time in over 2 decades. But let's start with the BU side of it, because this is the time of year that we talk all the time about the opportunity that's available, right? This is a huge opportunity for BU in the same way that we talked about it being a big opportunity for BC. BU has subtly, but kind of consistently moved up here in the NPI. They're all the way right on the edge of the tournament field right now. Well, why, you might ask? Well, even though they're just 3-2 to start the second half, Bridgette, all 3 wins are on the road. We know how that matters. And then the loss, one of those 2 losses, is to Lowell in overtime, which is closer to counting as a tie mathematically than a loss. So they've kind of moved up. Some other teams have moved down around them. And where, there's just not that many games left against teams this good, even in conference here. So for BU to get an opportunity against the top 12 team, it's really crucial. And then I think the biggest thing is just to build a little momentum, right? They have a nice game. Can they sustain it? Can they stretch it into a streak, a consistent streak here of good, solid play? I think they've kind of figured it out defensively. It's offensively at times where they've struggled a little bit. But the one guy who's been pretty consistent, and you've talked about him all year long, is Jonathan Morello.
Yeah, we bring him up because he's somebody that Jay Pandolfo talks about positively pretty much after every game. He says that basically that line has been their most consistent line this season at doing the little things right, being simple, going to the net, all of the things it takes to score goals, not necessarily in the prettiest of ways, but to come and show up every day with enough effort. And he's gotten some chemistry already, a new formed line with him, Richie, and Rukanakis ever since they've gotten some guys healthy, and also added Tynan Lawrence, who's still not quite been able to impact the game too much, but he's still learning, just coming in at the first or to start this second semester. So Pandolfo said that an issue for BU has been giving the other team life. So when BU is ahead, like they were against Lowell 2-0, they're giving the other teams these moments to kind of try to step back into the game and change the momentum. So that's something he wants to see. Just put your foot on the gas. Don't allow openings for other teams. And goaltending, we had a situation Friday where Lowell ends up scoring 3 goals in the second period. Pandolfo decides to take Yegorov out after the game. He said there was a little bit of fatigue with the workload that he's had. But Big Mike goes back in Saturday and gets a 3-0 shutout.
Yeah, and they're going to face this Providence team. The biggest thing, we talked about it a little bit with Nate Leaman, they're capitalizing on their chances, right? And for a Providence team that we talk about shooting percentage sometimes, it's not like the most important stat, but it just kind of tells a bigger picture. They were 51st nationally in shooting percentage before this 4-game winning streak at just 8.6%, but they've jumped up in a major way to 15%. That's much more standard, much more normalized. They should be able to go on a run if they keep doing that. And one of the big reasons why, Bridgette, is how well Logan Sawyer has come on here in 2026.
Yeah, he's our service credit union scoring leader. Goals in both of those games against Boston College. He has 4 goals in the last 5 games. And like Nate Leaman said, PC has gotten scoring support, not just from him, but kind of around the lineup over the last 4 games. They're averaging 4.25 goals a game. He's been part of what's kept them afloat and above that line here in the second half.
So PC and BU is a big one. Another big opportunity, UConn at Connecticut Ice this weekend. We'll talk about that when we come back.
We continue to go around Hockey East, presented by Boston Children's Hospital, the official children's hospital of Hockey East. Boston Children's, where the world comes for answers. Time to look at what UConn's got coming up for the men this weekend. They start the CT Ice tournament against Yale on Friday night. And looking back at what UConn's been able to do over the last few weeks, they split last weekend against Lowell and UVM. And when they allow 3 or less goals, this is a big thing for them. Since the start of November, they've only allowed 3 or fewer goals. They are 10-0-2 when they do that, but when they've allowed 4, they're 0-4. So a big determining factor there. They got some good goaltenders as well, but can Joey Muldowney have an amazing second half? So he last year was a big part of this offense, big part of this team. Second half for him already looking good. 8-game point streak. He comes into the weekend with 5 goals and 7 assists on that streak.
Yeah, he's been great. He was great in the second half last year. Remember when UConn went on their run and, they had done stuff earlier in the second half, but it was that CT Ice weekend. Remember they had that crazy win at the buzzer against Quinnipiac and then followed it up with a 1-0 win in the final against Sacred Heart. I think that was when everybody kind of took notice. And Mike Cavanaugh talked about the idea of, obviously at Boston College, when he was there, they always talked about trophy season. That was UConn's first real trophy that they had won. And that was really a meaningful thing for that group as they went on their run. So now can they do it again? The crucial nature of this, we talk about opportunity, is if UConn can get themselves matched up with Quinnipiac in the final. That would be the highest ranked NPI team left on any Hockey East team's schedule. Quinnipiac is rolling right now, so it won't be easy. They're averaging nearly 6 goals a game in 2026, but it's a massive opportunity for UConn if they can get there. So watch out for that. Another sneaky big series before we wrap up. Vermont, we've talked about them. They're rolling. Bridgette, UMass is rolling too, and they have 2 games against Vermont this weekend up at the Gut.
Yeah, all of a sudden they've won 3 in a row, jump back into the middle of the Hockey East standing. So they've really started to figure things out on defense. Since December 7th, they've allowed just 4 goals in their last 5 games, only 3 in 5-on-5 hockey. And Michael Robel, somebody to look at in this one. He has been the guy for UMass. Thought he could start getting back in this direction to come out of the break. In 4 games in 2026, he has a .963 save percentage. Only game they lost was a 1-0 game against BU, so still a really close, low-scoring game there.
Yeah, you can't really put that one on him, but it's good to see him playing the way that UMass needed. They've jumped way up. They're also blocking a ton of shots. That should be a good series. There's a lot of them this week. We can't wait to watch it with you. These NPI opportunities are out there. You just got to watch out for them. Should be a lot of fun. Should be a great week. Thanks so much for joining us, as always, for another edition of This Week in Hockey East.